So you don't know the thoughts of the other person. You're often not aware of what they really think about you, right? So to think that you know someone is very dangerous because it's based on your own projections, on your own preconceptions, based on your own childhood, your parents, etc. So it's very dangerous to think that you know someone, that you have pigeonholed them, because people are complex. They're changing. They're never the same. You think someone is outgoing, but then they have introspective traits. You think somebody is mean, but they also can be very kind at the same time. People are complicated. You can't fit them into these categories. Everybody's an individual. Everybody's different. They have their own backgrounds, they came from different social classes, different ethnicities. It's arrogant to think that you ever know anybody. So you have to begin from this position, almost like Socrates, of complete ignorance. I don't really know them. And then you kind of can start to maybe understand to a better degree who they are. Now, I can't understand, or I can't be inside like my wife's skin. I don't know what she's thinking. But I can know what she's feeling. And it's a different thing because we are intuitive. We can pick up the moods of other people. But we don't usually, it's a skill that you develop, but you sense that someone is upset or someone's excited. And there's cues and you can feel it in their body language. And so you know in that moment when you said something, it upset them. And then you can analyze what happened. So I said something and I picked up upset body language. What is it that I said? Did I trigger an insecurity? Did I make her feel like she did something wrong? What is it? Then from that knowledge, you can begin to maybe understand her insecurities, her weaknesses, what her world is like. But the most important thing I like to say on that score is when you go to see a movie, you're interested in the character because you don't know them, they're a stranger, and slowly things are revealed about who they are, and it's exciting. You know, they're evil, they're good, they're a mix of these things. That's what makes you want to watch the movie, is the characters involved, right? But we have a hard time translating that into real life. And I want people to think of the people they interact with as characters in a movie. They are strange, they are weird, they have their own fantasies, their own dreams, their own childhood traumas, their own childhood joys, right? And just as you get inside the character in a film, you want to get inside the skin of other people and understand what makes them tick and what their world is like. And it's infinitely interesting because people, as I said, are weird. They're strangers. They're like alien creatures. And it should be exciting to try and understand more and more about them. But never, ever have the belief that you're going to know people completely. They're always going to surprise you. They're always going to elude you. There's an element of mystery you can never get behind.
Is that a common mistake people make in relationships, revealing too much about themselves too quickly and becoming boring, let's say?
That is definitely a problem. I mean, in The Art of Seduction, I have a chapter, the last chapter, the 24th, so they have strategies of seduction in the second half of the book, and they kind of slightly go in sequence, leading to the end, to the culmination of your seduction. Then there's a chapter, the after effects, after you seduce someone. And the idea is, even in a relationship of a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you have to keep some level of seduction going. It's not the same level as when you're first dating, because that would be exhausting, right? But you have to keep a sense that you're not taking the other person for granted, that they're not so familiar to you that you just stop trying. You don't dress nicely anymore. You don't take them to nice restaurants. You don't try and do things that are surprising. You have to keep an element of mystery and surprise in any relationship to keep it going. And if people become too familiar, if you become too familiar to them and you just fall into these patterns, then all of that mystery and spark is gone. So the key in a relationship is to have moments where you surprise the other person. You've been with them for 10 years and suddenly you take them to a restaurant or on a trip that they had no idea you were thinking of, or you say something that's completely surprising to them. It doesn't have to be something expensive. It can just be an action or a behavior that they've never seen before in you. And it's not fake, it's real, but you have to realize that the feeling for the man or the woman that you are being taken for granted, that they know you, they know everything about you, is deadly. It destroys the sexual tension between you, destroys everything else.
In today's world, a big controversy among relationships is checking your partner's phone, like seeing what they're doing behind your back.
Yeah.
Do you think you should check your boyfriend or girlfriend's phone?
No. I mean, I suppose there could be a justification if you are pretty damn certain they're cheating on you, or if they're like a criminal doing harmful behavior. Maybe. But you should really respect other people's privacy, and the idea that you're going to cross that boundary, I think, reveals something very bad about you. So if you suspect behavior that you don't like, then confront them about it, then ask them about that. And of course, if they're cheating on you, they're going to lie. But I'm trying to help you develop your nonverbal skills. It's so easy to see through a liar. Traditionally, women have this more problem with men, but that's changing, where they feel, their gut tells them that there's something wrong with this man. He's lying. He's cheating on me. He's no good. But their heart, they want to be loved. They want to be in the relationship. So they don't trust their gut, that first impression, and they get into the relationship, and then it gets really nasty and ugly. I want you to trust your gut about people. If you feel like there's something sneaky or slimy or not trustworthy about this person, then there's probably something there. And the best thing to do is to try and confront them. And you can tell by the way they talk and the way they react that they're lying, right? Or that they're not lying. But, going into people's privacy and going into their phone, I think, is very, very invasive. It's violent, and I don't think it's warranted. I mean, I think a lot of it is you're just trying to find out more about them. You're trying to find out more about their secrets and their fantasies, or what they're doing, or if they're on Tinder looking for other mates or something, or whatever. I think you just got to resist that kind of thing and respect people, and not feel like you're given license to spy on them in some way. I think it's very dangerous.
If you feel the need to check someone's phone, it's because you went wrong at an earlier point, establishing some type of boundaries or communication, or vetting out the person fully, perhaps. That makes a lot of sense. I agree with the trust your gut thing. I always tell myself, no, be logical about it, but every single time it's always been the gut was right.
Yeah, you oftentimes, when you first meet somebody, it's a very strange thing. Because when you meet people for the second or the third time, it's not the same, right? But when you see them the first time, there's a weird energy going on because they're a stranger. And strangers, there's something strange, there's a wariness about them, there's a curiosity. It's a different energy than anything else. And you're feeling something from that person that's different from after you've seen them 2 or 3 times, because after 2 or 3 times, you're not paying attention. You've assumed, this is what they're like. I know who they are. That first time, you don't know that. And those gut feelings are much stronger. You're picking up vibes about them. Something is a little bit off about this person, right? Something about that narcissist, those eyes I was talking about. You pick that up, whereas the 3rd or 4th time, you're not sensitive to it anymore. So yes, you've gone wrong. You weren't paying attention earlier on, and now you're involved with someone who's up to no good.
I really love the quote that's like, the first time you meet someone, they reveal who they are. Because say you and I developed a close friendship. This is our first time meeting. And say I made one joke while we hung out with each other. And you laughed at it really hard. Then I made another joke. Then I just kind of become the jokester in Robert's life. But I might not be like that to other people. So we shift our behaviors the more we hang out with a person and stray further and further away from ourselves. Have you noticed this is the case?
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, this is part of the element of you don't know people that you're around. You don't know yourself, but as well. And what I mean by that is when you're around your boss, you have a different manner. You speak differently, your voice is different, your body language is different, the way you walk is different. And then when you're with your spouse or your children or a colleague who's you're equal with, you're completely different, right? What does that mean? What's going on here? Who's the real you? Is it how you behave with your boss when you're all a little bit tense and your voice is a little more hesitant? Or is it the real you when you're with your friend joking around? Or is it the real you when you're talking to your wife or your husband? You're a chameleon, you're an actor. You're constantly wearing a mask and changing how you behave depending on the level of power, the social status, the level of how well you know the other person. You're constantly shifting who you are, right? So if other people are doing that, you don't know who they are. So for me to assume that you're just this jokester type and that's who I've pegged you at, but you're completely different when you're with other people, you know? I remember I had this boss. I was working at a magazine in New York in the 80s, a pretty well-known magazine. And this boss, he was really nice to me. I thought, what a nice guy. This guy's really nice, you know, very unusual. Very down to earth. But then I would hear stories about what an asshole he was to the people behind closed doors, the people who worked for him, the people who worked directly under him. But he hid it from everybody else, but only like 3 or 4 people saw what a true asshole he was. So people are deceptive that way. They're trying to present to you a front that will make you impress you, but they'll have a different front with somebody else. So just never think that you really actually know a person because they're presenting something that they want you to believe is the reality.
Robert, what do you believe is the ugliest human emotion? And what emotion makes you do the most evil? Or what makes people do the most evil when they feel that specific emotion?
Well, it's hard to there's no algorithm that can determine what's more evil in these situations. So it's subjective. But one of the ugliest emotions is envy, simply because people don't recognize it. They don't admit to themselves that they're feeling envy. And because they don't admit to themselves that they feel envy, they feel they have license to do whatever they want. So a lot of murders, a lot of terrible crimes, a lot of sabotage have been committed out of envy of the person that you're dealing with. But you never admit it to yourself because envy means that you feel inferior to someone else. You wish you had what they have. Humans don't like to admit that they're inferior, that somebody has something that they wish they had. So we justify it to ourselves. We say, they're really a bad person. They're evil. They're inconsiderate. They're all full of themselves. They're arrogant. It's actually stemming from us. It's stemming from the fact that we wished we had what they had. We feel envy. And because we justify it as it's their problem, we're now justified to commit terrible things to them, spying on them, hurting them, sabotaging them. I have stories in the Laws of Human Nature of the great Mary Shelley, the woman who wrote Frankenstein, and how she was a magnet for envy. Some people are magnets for envy, and they're magnets from envy because they're so good. They're so successful. They're smart. They're beautiful. They're witty. They've got all these good qualities. A lot of people hate them and envy them. And she brought this woman into her life who was so friendly and nice. And that's what envious people often do. They often ingratiate themselves so that they can hurt you. And this woman ended up stealing her husband from her, who was the famous poet, Shelley. He ended up dying in an accident. She basically ruined Mary Shelley's life, destroyed it through envy, right? And finally, it took a long time because Mary Shelley didn't want to acknowledge this, but finally she realized that this woman is evil, downright evil, right? So envy can turn into a very evil, destructive emotion. It's not always that. There's passive envy where I myself feel envy for a great basketball player who could do things that I could never do because I love basketball. I was never very good at it, but God damn it, I really envy Kobe Bryant. But I don't do anything about it. I love him. He was my hero. But so there's passive envy where you kind of envy. I've talked about this before, but Ryan Holiday, I was once his mentor, and now he's incredibly successful. He's younger than me. He's better looking than me. I could feel envy towards him, and I do, and I admit it. But it's passive envy. I don't act on it. But people who are very insecure and feel envy are capable of very evil things. The other emotion that can lead to evil actions are people who are so certain of themselves. They know the truth. They know what is going on. They know the answer to everything. Because they know what is happening, they're willing to do anything, right? They'll take all kinds of actions to prove that they're certain. But their certainty is not based on anything real. So I always look at people who are filled with conviction and certainty as actually very dark figures. The warm human quality that you want is you don't know. You're uncertain. You're not sure that this is exactly the right thing to do. You're not killed by doubt. You're not able to not take any action, but you always have a sense of, maybe I don't know what's right. Maybe I have to think more deeply about it. Maybe I have to be more of a human being than this machine that's so certain about things. But those would be sort of, to me, the two most potentially evil qualities.
It's funny how often you never hear anyone say just the words, I don't know.
I know.
No one can ever just admit that they don't know something.
I know.
I would assume that if you went to anyone on the street and asked them any question about just the United States, like name the state, they would just give a guess. No one just ever says, I don't know.
Yeah, it's very true. And when you do meet somebody, like in an interview or on television or in media, who says, I don't know, I immediately respect them. I immediately think, wow, that's great. That's so unusual. The other quality is, yes, it was my fault. I made a mistake. It wasn't the other person. I'm not a victim here. I made a mistake. I own up to it. I'm taking responsibility for it. How rarely do you ever hear that?
That's a rare one too. Yeah. I'm not friends with that person anymore because I was an asshole. You never hear anyone say that. But it's more true that it's not because someone had to be. You've mentioned how the best seducers kind of mirror childhood fantasies. Why did the best seducers act like children? Or have this like childlike characteristic about them that makes them very charismatic?
Well, not all of them do, but a lot of very good seducers do because it's a very natural quality. So children are by nature very seductive because they're not trying to put on a front. They just are who they are, right? And they're very fresh and they say what they think and they have weird fantasies and they're charming and we're charmed by them, right? And so when a person retains that quality, retains that openness, retains that kind of spontaneity, retains that kind of unpretentiousness, we're charmed as well and we can be seduced by them. And one of the types, in the book I have 9 types of seducers, and I'm trying to tell you, the reader, that you are at least one of these types, maybe 2, but usually there's one that stands out. And one of the types is the natural, which is the person who's retained their childlike qualities.
This makes sense.
But in all of them, if the seducer seems too calculating, too cold, too in control, too trying to dominate and get sex or get a favor out of it, it's sometimes easy to see through, and it's not very seductive. But we don't think of children as being seducers. We just think of them being themselves. But actually, children are trying to seduce. They actually are trying to get your attention. They are trying to get your love. But if you make it seem like you're just a natural, like you're just naturally who you are, then people won't realize that you're seducing them. You can get away with a lot. Whereas if you're so cold and calculating and it's so clear you're making moves, so clear you read Robert's book and you're following this, idea and that one, then people can see through it. I remember in the early 2000s, the whole pickup artist thing was sort of taking off. And they had all of these strategies that they would use, like negging and things like that. And they reached a point where I would talk to women and they say, I've seen that strategy used on me so many times that I could see it coming from miles away. It completely lost its effect because it was so clear, it was so obvious. So the whole game of seduction is to make it seem like you're not seducing. And having that kind of childlike quality will conceal all of your strategies, all of the tactics that you're using. And maybe you're not even using a conscious strategy. You are just being who you are, which is ultimately the most charming quality of all.
I've actually, I think Mystery might be the person you're referring to. He was kind of the founder of all this. His kind of wingman or so, I've actually been out with that guy to bars. And way back, maybe like a year and a half ago, his name is Baxter. And he does quite well with women, but it's not because he does a little bit of the negging thing. But the main thing I realized from him is how playful he is. Yeah. Like he makes it feel like fun, kind of maintaining that childhood quality that you just mentioned.
But it's a fine line. You have to make it feel like it's naturally fun, not like you're trying, not like it's something you've learned or something. The worst thing for a seducer is to apply the same strategy twice to a different person. Oh, this worked before, so I'm going to do the same thing. So it's not going to be very playful if you've got like a shtick. And this is how you appear playful for each woman. You've got to like adapt. You got to change. You got to, you got to be in the moment.
It has to be fun for you. You can't just be trying to set up a situation where it's fun for them.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I think that's a mistake I've made in the past, maybe taking the same person to the same restaurant because I'm like, oh, I know they'll like this place. I've been here before. But at that point, I don't really enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah, that's good advice. To go to a bit of your background, you mentioned earlier that you had several jobs. You had jobs as a construction worker in Greece, an English teacher in Barcelona, a hotel receptionist in Paris. While you were doing all those odd jobs, what were you thinking about?
Well, I was in my 20s. So the first of them was I was working in a hotel in Paris. I was 22, fresh out of college. And I was just excited. I wasn't thinking too much. I was just so happy to be in Paris, to be away from home. And it was a Hotel Saint-André des Arts in the 6th arrondissement, where all the fashion models were staying. So imagine I'm 22, I'm from California, and there's all these like gorgeous fashion models staying there. It was like insane. I was having such a good time.
You weren't thinking about too much philosophy at that time, maybe.
I was reading a lot. I'm always reading, but that's sort of when my interest in seduction kind of blossomed because I met a man there who was like an amazing seducer, and I kind of observed him. So I wasn't thinking too much. Those years in Europe, I really wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write novels, and I was like accumulating experience for that. So that was sort of in the back of my mind. Then when I was teaching English in Spain, that was later, I love Spain is one of my favorite countries, and I love the people there. And it was just a very happy moment in my life because I don't really generally like teaching, but these people were they were the best students you could have. And I just really loved being around them because Spanish people, you can generalize, so it's not, please understand that I am totally generalizing. But they're very warm. They're not. I had been in England before, where people can be very tricky. You never know what they're thinking. They say one thing and they're doing another. The Spanish people were very upfront. They say what they think. They do what they feel like. You can read them very easily. I felt very comfortable at ease with Spain. So that was more that. When I was working in Greece, I had fallen very ill. I was in a hospital, and my life was sort of saved at that point, but I ran out of all my money. I had to get a job to get off the island of Crete. And one of the jobs was construction. It was just awful, awful experience. Pulling nails out of pieces of wood and cutting yourself and everything. So each job was at a different kind of point in my life. But through all of it, what I was thinking of was I'm accumulating adventures that are going to turn into some really interesting novel.
Right.
And it never happened. That's a whole other story.
Do you believe that's a good way to live life? As though you were the main character in a novel that you're writing and you should try to accumulate as many interesting experiences as possible?
Well, there are lessons to be had there. Now, understand everybody's different. So I tell a lot of young people come to me, their careers are starting, they're in their early 20s, their late teens, and they want to know how they should approach those years and how they should approach if they're going to university and such. And I tell them, you shouldn't really follow what I did, but one thing that I did that I do advocate is having a sense of adventure, right? So what I don't like about what some young people do is they're in such a hurry to make a lot of money that they go join some big firm on Wall Street or whatever, where they get, immediately, that's what their life is going to be like. And they're 22, 23. And all the joy, all the excitement, all the fun, all the adventure, all the uncertainty is gone. I know it's different now for young people than when I was young. It's a lot harder. It's harder to get a good job. Jobs aren't so available. Things are much more uncertain now than they were in my day. It's hard to hold on to something for very long. The industries are constantly being churned up and you never know where you are. So there's more insecurity than when I was a young person. So I understand that and I'm empathetic. So I can understand why you would want security when you're in your 20s in this day and age as opposed to when I was. I didn't want security. I wanted fun and adventure and weirdness. But I think you have to have some adventure because it sounds like a total cliche, but your youth passes really quickly. You don't realize it. You think you've got all these vistas of time, and then it's gone. And it's the best time of your life. You've got all this energy. Your mind is fluid. It's open. You're excited about people. You're following trends. You've got to be a little more open to having experiences, to even having failure, to even being hurt, to just living life and to be alive and not be so worried and fearful. That's what I think is what I tell people. But then I was wanting to be a writer, and to be a writer is a whole totally different thing where you do want to accumulate experiences. You do want 50 different jobs. You do want to meet all sorts of different people and travel. That's not a blueprint for a lot of people out there. But having an adventure, having a spirit of adventure and trying different things while also being practical. So I want to go into business. All right, maybe in 3 years I will join that firm. But in the meantime, maybe I'll try a startup. Maybe I'll create my own business. Maybe I'll start a podcast. Maybe I'll do something different and not be in such a hurry. And then I'll learn something. And then maybe it'll be time to go to business school and follow that more traditional path.
It's all about balancing certainty and uncertainty. And a lot of people just go down a path and never explore what could have been. I think that's really insightful. I'm curious, just from your personal experience, do you think that time passes quicker the older you get?
Yeah, it does. It's sad. There's good things about getting older. I don't take things quite so seriously anymore. I feel calmer about life. And I personally have a sense of fulfillment and security that I didn't have when I was younger. So nothing is better or worse. It's just life. And so it has its advantages. But time does pass more quickly. And I don't have the energy that I had when I was younger. I have things that I miss terribly. And, it's kind of sad, but, I had such a good time when I was younger, and I kind of miss that. It's gone forever. But other things have taken its place. But time definitely passes more quickly when you're older, yeah.
I mean, I've noticed that even at 23 years old, just, I'm like, wow, this last year feels a lot faster than it did in middle school. And I'm like, it's just going to get faster and faster as
Yeah,
it
when
goes.
you're a kid, the way I explain it, because I do a lot of meditation and I think about these things a lot, is that when you're a child, because a child, a day could feel like a year. So many things happen. I don't know if this is going to sound weird, but the space in between your thoughts can be rather large. So you have a thought, and then like a minute later, you'll have another thought. And in between that time passes really slowly. When you get older, the thoughts come quicker and quicker and quicker. Now it's not like a whole minute. Now it's like less than a second. One new thought, another image, another memory, blah, 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 really spinning faster and faster and faster. As it goes through your mind, time seems to speed up. You don't have those vistas of time that are kind of empty and open, which gives that kind of slow rhythm to life. You've got this sped up, continual thinking going on, half of a second, new images, new memories, new problems. I think that's why time speeds up. That's just my theory.
I really like that. I believe as well that meditation is the space between words or the space between thoughts. It's those moments. And as we get older, we have less meditation naturally.
Yeah.
In 2018, you were stung by a wasp.
Yeah.
And this inevitably led to you having a stroke.
Yeah.
Did this experience change your perspective on vulnerability? And how do you view power differently after having a stroke?
Well, I don't view power differently, but what did change was I lost control over my body. I was somebody who was very active physically. Every third day I would swim, and I would swim very long distances. The other days I would go on long bike rides, and then I would do some form of yoga or Pilates and stretching. Every day, or hiking, every day I was very active and physical because it took me out of my stressful writing period patterns. Suddenly, I had no control over my body, something that I prized myself on. I wasn't an athlete, but I had, I could do a lot of things. I lost control over my body. I lost power on my left side. I still, to this day, have that. So it made me feel weak. It made me feel dependent on other people, where I was always independent. And it was a kind of a reckoning, because I could say one thing: I understand people in the world who don't have power much better. Although I have to say, for 38 years, until I wrote the 48 Laws of Power, I was not a successful person. So I've always understood what it's like to struggle in life, because I struggled for over half my life, and I'm in my 60s now. So, but physically weak, physically dependent, made me understand what a lot of people have to go through when they have no control over their body, over their work, over their future. It's a terrible feeling, and it gave me a higher degree of empathy for them. I had empathy for them, but it wasn't real. It was just like intellectual. Now it was physical. I really understand what it's like to be dependent on others, and it's not a good feeling, and it's sad. And so in that sense, it kind of changed me. And then, you have to think of, like, was it destined to happen? What if that wasp had missed me? Because it's like, could have just flown right by. None of this would have happened. But then on the other hand, when I had my stroke, I nearly died. I was, my wife saved my life. I was driving a car here in Los Angeles. I came this close to dying. And it was an insane experience. I mean, I've had an experience that very few people have ever had, which is kind of a near-death experience. And it changes your mind. It plays with your brain. It plays with how you look at the world. It makes you understand what it means to be alive. So right now, I have this very weird-looking bicycle. It's a recumbent bike. It's basically a souped-up tricycle that is very light, and I can go up these big hills. and I'm riding my bike, and everybody's passing me. Even 80-year-old grandmothers are passing me because it's not powerful. And I'm thinking, all these people, they take for granted their bodies. They take for granted that they can walk. They take for granted that they can bicycle. They take everything for granted. They're not aware. And I put myself in their bodies and I go, if I were them, every moment I'd be so happy. I'd be so excited because I could walk. I could do things that I can't do right now. But they don't feel that way. And what I'm trying to say is people out there, you should feel that way. Don't take for granted the things that you can do right now. Even a simple thing like taking a little walk. You should be looking out at the world. You should be looking at the sky. You should be looking at the people, the cars, and feel, God damn it, I'm alive. It's insane, But everyone takes it for granted. It makes me kind of angry. And it makes me feel like, in some ways, I'm better off with my stroke because I know how flimsy life is and how it can be lost in a second. And you don't know that, and you're wrong, and you're stupid. So maybe there was something gained from the experience.
It's interesting. I might not look like it, but I have a condition that it's happened to me twice now in the past 4 years. And essentially, I get slowly paralyzed, and then I remain paralyzed for about 3 weeks, and then it reverses.
What is it?
It wasn't never diagnosed. Are you familiar with Guillain-Barré syndrome? But it's essentially, they tested me for everything. They didn't really come up with it.
Is it neurological?
They believe it's neurological. Didn't really have any medicine for me. I spent, the first time I was 19 in college, and I spent like 2 or 3 weeks in the hospital. And yeah, they sent in every doctor, did every test, couldn't figure out what it was. And then the second time.
How paralyzed are you?
I can get up like when it happens to me. I fully like recover after those couple weeks, but when it happens to me, like at the worst, I can't like lift anything. I can stand, but I can't walk very far. And then I can move like my neck and my mouth, but like hands, I can move my fingers, but not my arms. But don't know what it is, but I definitely know what it means to like have that power taken away temporarily, and it's like very humbling when it happens. But yeah, I can never find a lot of good in it, so I appreciate your perspective of finding good in it. So would you say that you're glad that it happened to you, or grateful?
No, I'm so upset sometimes. I can't tell you how upset I get, but it has its advantages, its benefits, in that it gives me perspective on life. It gives me an idea. It makes me less afraid of death. I understand what death is like. I feel it. I felt it. I felt it inside of my body. I'm not afraid of it. It was kind of peaceful. So that's good. And as I said, it's probably made me in some ways nicer, because I'm dependent on other people. It's forced me to be nicer. So there are things that are good from it, but what was taken away from me is so painful I can't explain to you. It's just so painful that I would never wish it on anyone, because you don't realize what a joy it is to be walking, to be moving, so I don't know how to answer that. It's
maybe not the benefit for you, but the benefit to others to hear your story and know that this is someone fascinated by power that's had an aspect of it taken away from him, and to cherish it more.
And the other aspect is I'm writing a book. It'll be finished. It'll be out next year on what I call the sublime. You're aware of it because I've talked about it. And I had originally, as I've explained in other podcasts, I originally intended it when I was going to maybe write it 15, 16 years ago or longer, to have all these adventures that would qualify as sublime, like trekking through the Gobi Desert and swimming with dolphins and going to Antarctica. And now I'm writing the book. I can't do anything. All I can do is sit in my goddamn office. I can't even type. I have to handwrite everything. I am so limited. So if I'm writing a book on the sublime, on experiences that take you to another realm. I have to make it so it has nothing to do with money or jetting off to places. It has to do with basic everyday life. What is sublime about the simplest thing in your environment? Because that's all I can suck it out of, you know? So in some ways it's made the book, I think, better.
What does it mean to live a life touched by the sublime?
Well, you know, part of being a human being is all of these conventions that we have to abide by, social conventions about how you're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to be around other people, things you're supposed to say, things you're not supposed to say, work conventions, things you're supposed to do on the job and your career and your future, thinking conventions. These are thoughts that you're supposed to have, that everybody has at this particular moment, where everything is so technological. I could go on and on about it, but everything is like a conventional way of doing. That's what humans are like, right? And I compare it to a kind of a circle that we all live inside, and it becomes a prison. You're like sick of it. You want new things. You want new thoughts. You want new social relationships. You want something new and different that goes outside that goddamn circle, right? That's what the sublime is. The sublime is, I go through the chapters, but it's about being aware of how strange it is to be alive, like what I've been talking about. What a miracle! It's the auto, and I explain in the book, the fact that you and I are sitting here in this room talking is so incredibly unlikely. And I explain why it's so unlikely. That if you think about it, everything in your life is like a dream. It's like you can almost believe that aliens are running a program. It's so weird. Life is so surreal. I talk about your childhood and how incredibly sublime your childhood was, and how you can hold on to it, and how you can retain that quality. I talk about our relationship to animals and other species, and how we can interact with them. Our consciousness can pass through species barriers, and how strange that is. I talk about the human brain and how our brains create reality, but there is actually another reality out there that we can experience, and it's sublime. I talk about love and how love can be sublime. I talk about history and the past, on and on. If you experience just one of those 12 things that I have made around the circle, your life will be that much richer, because with your smartphones, your brains are your focus and your minds are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Your focus is shrinking to the size of your phone. Whereas science is expanding our minds to incredible limits, where they're photographing black holes, where they're explaining where the Big Bang came from. So we want to be expanding our consciousness, not shrinking it down. And just one of those 12 things will expand your mind outside of that narrow little circle that we live in, and will give you a feeling that there's so much more to our daily life than we imagine. It's so much stranger, weirder, and more exciting than you realize. And I think it can have a very powerful effect on people. I hope the book has that effect on people.
Right. I'm excited to read that one.
I'm excited to have you read it, so it's over. Yeah.
When do you, you're not supposed to ask a writer when their book is coming out, but when do you hope that?
It'll be out fall of next year.
Fall of next year?
Yeah. I'm on chapter 11, and there are 12 chapters. But it's been like 5-6 years in the making.
That's fairly long compared to your other books.
Human Nature took 5 years. But not being able to type and not being able to take a walk to clear my head has probably added at least a year to the process.
On the sublime, what is Robert Greene's spiritual stance?
Well, I've always been kind of agnostic. If I experience something and it's real and it's inside of me, I believe in it. But if it's something that I've never experienced, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, but it's not real to me yet. So I did not grow up, I'm Jewish, but I did not grow up in a family of believing in God so much. It's never was really part of my experience. And I've had the experience that there is something much larger to this world, something transcendent, something much greater than us that connects us all, that there is something cosmic. That doesn't necessarily involve some single creator spirit out there. I don't know. I'm agnostic. I don't know to be is the answer. But particularly when I was younger, or when I had my drug experiences, or when I meditate, it's very clear to me that there's something much greater than who we are, than being an individual human. There's some force out there that's immense that we're a part of. And I talk about it in the Sublime book. But I talk about, I have a chapter on ancient religions, pagan religions and paganism, and their relationship to God, and how it was kind of similar to what I'm describing to you now. So it's hard to verbalize my answer there. It's not about that single God figure that I'm worshiping or praying to. It's more like a feeling of something that connects all of us as humans, connects all living things, and connects everything in the universe, that there is some kind of transcendent spirit or energy. I definitely believe in that.
It's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of the structure of maybe 48 Laws, that you use these examples of people throughout history as being representative of how to live your life, and the things that play in life. And it's kind of maybe similar to how you think about ancient religions, like maybe the Greeks, that they had all these gods that represented the spiritual nature of these different aspects of life. This might be a tough question. I don't love this question, because I know the 48th law is ignore the other 47.
Oh, okay.
If you had to make a 49th law of power, what would it be?
I would have the 49th law of power. There's no such thing. I mean, so when I first started the book, it was my first book. I'd never written anything like it before. I did a lot of research, and I noticed I didn't have an idea of 48 laws of power. I noticed these patterns in history of things that happened that were kind of universal. And I started out with like 78 of them, something like that. I'd have to go back to my cards. And slowly I whittled it down further and further and further. This isn't completely a law on its own, because it's actually a part of something else. So there isn't anything that, to me, that I haven't covered. Now, obviously, people will say, well, you don't have a chapter about social media. Well, I don't need a chapter on social media, because all of the dynamics in the 48 laws of power you'll find in social media already. So it's not a book about what's going on in the world right now as if I have to change it to make it updated. It's universal. The research that I put into it was every culture around the planet, going back 5,000 years up to the present, every men and women, all different countries. So I know it's going to sound arrogant, but I feel like I covered everything that needs to be covered about power. If somebody wants to come to me and say, Robert, this should be the 49th law of power, and they have, I'm very good at arguing with them and saying, well, actually, it's covered in this. Now, I might be being a bit specious there, because it's my interest to say there are only 48 laws. I understand. But I actually truly believe that I kind of have it covered. If you can come up with something, Jack, I'll
I don't have any ideas. I think you mostly covered it. And then I guess by that same token, there would be no law that you would remove from the 48 laws.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely not.
Well, I have a more interesting question for you then.
Okay.
Stanley requested that I add this in because we'd used it from a previous interview, and he thought it would be particularly good for you.
Uh-oh.
If all your books were burned and erased from the internet forever, and all you had were the next 60 seconds, what's the most useful thought you could leave to the world?
I guess my whole life has been about people pretending to be something that they're not. And that's why I wrote these books that have now disappeared. That people are playing roles, that they wear a mask, that they're not what they appear to be. And you need to open your eyes to that and see this world as full of actors wearing costumes and wearing masks and pretending to be something that there is what they want to present. And it's not necessarily reality. And when you look at this world full of actors playing these games, you don't get angry, you don't get upset, you don't say, God, I wish everything was different. I wish people would just be who they are. You just enjoy it. It's like you're watching a play, you're watching a movie, and you're seeing people